And there are solutions. We just have to let the people who know what they're doing do the work and get out of their way.
And Kimmy, if you will, just allow me to put an addendum on there. It is not just of an affordable housing, right?
No,
Or a lack of affordable
it's a
housing.
lot of things.
If even if rent was $1,000,
Mhm.
it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the jobs here,
Yes.
right? Everyone can't work in the shipyard,
Mhm.
right? You're talking about, credit issues. You have folks that, don't have 3 times the rent. You don't have folks that have credit worthiness. We have AI, right? If you at all are watching what's happening in the news, right? You may see it in your sector, right? Folks laying off, folks at companies laying people off 5, 10,000 at a time, jobs not coming back. I use AI, and quite frankly, I don't need 3 or 4 staff because I can do these things within seconds, right? And that you can't afford them. And so you're going to use these tools. So what is that going to look like as we go ahead and modernize? This is just the way of the world, right? So what are folks going to do? We're talking about health issues. Where as technology goes, it's a weird thing. It seems like humans are getting sicker. We don't invest in our own people here in America, so we are sick as a people. And then we blame it on ourselves and say, well, you don't have to eat the food, but we're poisoning our kids, and then we're socialized that way and say, well, you should just eat the fruits and vegetables. But hey, even now, what is it? The iceberg lettuce is giving us crazy diarrhea, right? In the emergency room, don't eat the lettuce right now. But I mean, you get my point. So, whether it's mental health or physical health, again, if it's $1,000 a month, but I can't work, it's not going to help me at all anyway.
And those problems get worse and worse and worse until they become such a great burden on everybody.
Come down there. What is the gentleman's name that I bought the cane for with the toe? I don't know if it's appropriate to say his name now, my buddy.
Are you talking about the veteran?
I don't know if he was a veteran or not, but I
think I know who you're talking about.
But just watching you and Kelsey, treat wounds,
Yeah.
And watching, folks that should not be out in the street.
No, they shouldn't.
It should be in a hospital room.
Yes.
Looking at these wounds, and if it were you and I, we would be in a room in isolation in a place that was sterile, and these folks are out in these deplorable conditions. And I think someone said it in the chat, right? You are just one accident away,
yes.
One illness away from being unhoused yourself. You're one car accident away where that person was uninsured or your insurance lapsed and you can't get to work because you were already commuting. It's what happens when you can't get back on track.
Yeah, well, then when you find out, you wish you had seen it differently by that point, because now you've lost a lot of your ability to stand up for yourself.
Right. Not even to factor what's happening geopolitically. Hey, I can't afford the gas. I can't afford the groceries. We're talking about furloughs during, Christmas time last year, and, folks pulling together. This place was packed here at New Day with veterans and government employees coming in to get, Thanksgiving dinners and just being extremely thankful, right? It's all the things all at once. And we're watching this cascade where folks are just trickling down, right? They're going from bigger homes to smaller homes. And I was telling people years ago, what's the thing that we're seeing shoot up? It was before the apartment complexes were shooting up all over the places because slow permits. We were watching storage units shooting up everywhere because people were downsizing and putting stuff in storage units. They were moving in with friends and they were downsizing, and folks were moving in cars. And then, they're in the street and they're in the shelter. We're just watching it. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and you see the new faces on the street.
About building industrial jails for people who are poor, right, and criminalizing people for their very existence, and then making it a normal thing. It's slowly infiltrating to where we're making it so it's just normal for someone who's homeless to be arrested for camping, even though it's far from camping. That's not what they're doing. But we're normalizing it so the average person isn't going to stand up and say, whoa, what are we doing? We need to figure this out, because that seems like a bigger waste of money per night to stay in a jail than if they just had an affordable apartment complex their benefits would pay for. And so it's we're getting a large amount of people into this system that we can then make money off of through the EMS, through the hospital system. I work as a nurse. I know, I see it, the revolving door of this. We fix them up for millions of dollars, life support for months, maybe. If they're lucky enough, I don't know if you call it lucky, to go back out, they're put right back out where they were hit by a car or whatever, or beat up, or you name it, diabetic, ulcer, seizures, whatever. It's just this ridiculous waste of resources and money, and it's definitely benefiting a certain class of people in America.
Well, and you'll have counsel say that it's not their responsibility, it's not their job, and hey, this is what nonprofits should do, and that's what the people should do. The problem is that nonprofits, many have not recovered from COVID. People haven't recovered from COVID, and as people are getting squeezed, doesn't matter how empathetic or sympathetic they are, they're in survival mode, right? Their resources are tapped.
Yeah.
The city has to do something.
Well, they're choosing to use our tax dollars.
Jump in there,
Jose. In jail.
There's something going on that no one sees because it's kind of this idea of omission. You're going to have an omission when things are being done that are illegal or wrong. No one will cop to it. What we're actually seeing in Bremerton is the incredible amount of time, energy, personnel time they're putting into simply lying. That whole pause, that 7-month pause, where they had Ann Williams cherry picking masses of literature that had nothing to do with real free speech law, nothing to do with real ARPA under Washington. That was that entire 6 months. They had Kylie Fennell, they had council members. That was a small fortune to lie, to misrepresent. What they've done with the Evergreen Point, the rigging of that project started in 2019, and it continues now. That stonewalling is a massive amount of planning and coordination to make sure that they don't get busted, that they don't have to do a perp walk. The comprehensive plan, they decided that they were going to take out all real discussion of the Shoreline Management Act. Why? Because they didn't want Sound West Group and Andrew Spencer to get in trouble because they flouted the Shoreline Management Act. The Growth Management Act, under 2 provisions of the GMA, the Growth Management Act, requires the assessment, the application of the Shoreline Management Act. So when they took that out, what happened when they took that out? They created a comprehensive plan that is just fatally flawed. It has a big hole in it. So the other way that they've screwed up that comprehensive plan, so when they evoked the comprehensive plan as a reason why the BHA shelter is somehow awry or amiss or doesn't belong there, you know what's really happening?
What?
Because now we know that Jack Paul was involved in this master plan Harrison Heights development that they have all lined up for Harrison Heights. Literally from October to January, they're talking about developing Harrison Heights. So this is a city planner, a city commissioner, and a council member, Denise Fry, working together during the comprehensive plan to decide what's going to happen in Harrison Heights. So on the one hand, they're pretending that the comp planning is objective, it's rational, that this is the way we have to be because we're anticipating growth in Bremerton. So they're doing this while on the side, they're plotting. We have the emails. They're literally plotting. This is how they do it. The nonprofit YMCA, because Les Larson is on the board, he gets to say, well, for the good of the community, the YMCA wants to develop this school district property. And then what does Wesley Larson says that where it is a for-profit venture? He says, notably missing from the list of stakeholders we're going to need are capital influencers. What does he mean by capital influencers? He puts in parentheses, people who have check writing capacity. In other words, rich guys like him.
Yes.
Wow.
So he is gathering a group. He says we need like 12 to 15 people So he wants a collection of individuals who are both government officials.
Check writing capacity.
Yeah, he wants to put together government officials, rich guys with check writing capacity, and developers all together.
Wow.
So that they can come up with a master plan. He says, Jack Paul, I want you and Chuck Henderson to draw up some conceptual designs. And at some point, I want to give a presentation to council. So all of this is happening concurrently with comprehensive planning. Does the comprehensive planning mention that? No. When Denise Fry and Andrea Spencer proposed the opportunity zones for Harrison Heights, do any of them ever mention that they have lined up for this opportunity zone application the master plans for Harrison Heights? No, no one has a clue.
Yeah.
I literally did not know this was happening.
No, you wouldn't be able to.
No one knows this. So what is wrong with that picture? The law of conflict of interest say, if you have a planning commissioner and they are in conflict for a variety of reasons of pecuniary interest, legal liability, or because while you're doing a supposedly objective comprehensive plan, you're doing another plan, do we not think that at some point they're going to use what they've done with the comp plan, with their secret master plan, and they're going to make them work together? Of course we will. We're not dummies. So when that is going on, when the planning commissioner is in cahoots with Denise Fry, and when they're using a nonprofit as the conduit, so you know what I call that? I call that using a nonprofit to make a profit. The IRS considers that self-dealing if you are as influential as Wesley Larson. So he is kind of warping the idea of a nonprofit, gathering together rich guys and Denise Fry, and putting them all together to work secretly behind closed doors, while one of the members of this group, Jack Paul, is working on the comprehensive plan with other developers on the planning commissioner. That's a classic conflict of interest. And so what has happened is they have probably rendered that comprehensive plan invalid. So not only is it invalid because they flouted the Shoreline Management Act, they refused to address the Shoreline Management Act and the rigging of the Evergreen Point, they refused to acknowledge the interrupted buffers during the comprehensive plan. They're literally working on the side on a so-called master plan. So, and then to make it worse, this whole idea of false report, to make it worse, in the middle of their sabotaging of the BHA shelter, guess what happens? Denise Fry and Andrea Spencer put up a hearing. Hey guys, we really need to submit an application for a new opportunity zone for Harrison Heights. And a bunch of us protested, we need that money elsewhere. I told them about the Genovese fraud litigation, which we might want to talk about. So in that hearing, you never hear from Denise Fry that her buddy, Wesley Larson, has a master plan that will immediately take advantage of that opportunity zone. There is no way in the world they're not going to immediately benefit from the opportunity zone that she's praising. And during that hearing, this is May 20th, during that hearing, the lady actually admits, yes, I invest in my community. I don't know if I'm going to get a return on it. So tell me, does anyone really believe that since Denise Fry has admitted being an investor in development, that she isn't investing in Wesley Larson's operation? Can any one of us possibly believe she has the self-discipline to say, since he's a fat cat, since Jack Paul is a fat cat and the planning commissioner, I'm not going to myself be conflicted by investing in their projects? I cannot believe that. I'm sorry. There's no way in the world. I consider her a duplicitous forked tongue, but on her best day, I don't believe she has the self-discipline or even the legal knowledge to just refrain and not be conflicted by investing in this master plan.
Got you. But you have no proof of that.
She admits being an investor, but she does not tie that to Wesley Larson. There is no one in city government who has yet to step forward and saying, I'm investing in Wesley Larson's project. But they don't need to say it, because you know why? Because ultimately, we don't really care if they're investors in his projects or not. We want them to follow the law. We want them to not misrepresent what's going on. And when they omit that there is a master plan for Harrison Heights that Wesley Larson has taken charge of and that Denise Fry knows about. And when Wesley Larson says, Denise Fry, see if you can get LTAC money to us. See if the LTAC can work on our Harrison Heights master plan. And she never comes out in public and talks about that. That's too much insider information for comfort. That is a classic conflict of interest.
Do we know what the relationship is between Larson and Denise?
Chamber of Commerce, I think that's what her job was to do.
Yeah,
was to help people like him. There's pictures of them and all these parties that they go to together.
I can tell you that when Jack Paul, the Sound West Group director and partner, is installed in the Planning Commission in October of 2024, Denise Wright immediately steps up. She name drops Wes Larson, and she says, Wes Larson told me that the great pivot moment of the Marina Square development was all Jack's idea, that if it wasn't for Jack, that pivot moment wouldn't happen. And then she says, we gave them the Pivot Award for that moment because that was an amazing thing they did. In other words, during COVID, they had to switch it up a little to make sure that that development would fly financially. So she gave them a wooden plaque. It was actually quite cheap looking, if I may say so myself. It says Pivot Awards on West Group. She awards them as a Chamber of Commerce director this Pivot Award, right? So you see these photographs with the dates. She's wearing bunny ears for...
I don't know why.
I don't know why, but I find it quite symbolic.
Wow.
She's wearing these bunny ears, and Larson and Jack Paul are next to her smiling. So they're having a great time. They're probably in the Roxy, and she's giving them this award. So that's what these people do. They pat each other on the back.
So I want to put this on the screen and just go back to the conflict of interest. And here, number 4, informational conflict takes place when access to privileged, confidential, or inside data is used to secure an unfair personal advantage. Mm-hmm. And again, the podcast that I did on July 4th with the Foundation for Homeless and Poverty Management that still does not have their permits, right? They have developers. Why are they not able to develop their property? The other thing that kind of was on my mind when you were speaking, Jose, is, during COVID, they tore down Harrison Hospital. And, I would get these migraines and I would go into Harrison. And I remember going in, right before they tore it down. And it was right before COVID was torn down, maybe a year before or whatever. Then all of a sudden it was like, there's mold and it's not fit for anyone to come, because we were advocating, why not put the homeless there, right? You could put up tarps and whatnot and it'd be safe. And it's like, and it's not fit for humans. Like, what? Put a sign up there and have folks sign waivers, right? It's a empty building, right? It's better than outdoors. And now all of a sudden it's like, we're going to develop it and look at the views. It sits up on a hill. It's like, okay, well, you've got that property there. Why not allow it to, have something for the unhoused there, right? It's like you want to develop it all. The other thing that was in my mind was, okay, so you're going to develop this, and where exactly are these people actually going to spend money? In Bremerton, they're likely, going to get their gas in Costco. They're probably going to do most of their shopping in Silverdale. I don't see many of these folks shopping at SARS because they've got their views. So this is probably going to be some pretty expensive, property. They're going to get their fuel at Costco, right? They're probably not going to go to Speedway across the street. I don't really see them frequenting much of anything on the corridor there. They're probably going to go to Trader Joe's in Silverdale, right? Because
I may have the answer.
Their income. So is Bremerton really going to benefit from the income from these folks that move in there, or is the income, the money that they spend, not really going to be absorbed into the Bremerton economy in the way that they want?
A few rich people, that's for sure.
I'm just wondering,
This is what their business model is. What you see, it's their thing. For instance, the idea of Quincy Square, you'll literally see this very cute-looking kind of graphical spread. There's a building there, and someone from Rice Fergus. It's a beautiful graphic, by the way. Very aesthetic, very pleasing to the eye. And on one building, they wrote Anchor, right? Then you see the rest of the Quincy Square block and the associated buildings around there. what the idea of Southwest Group, and by the way, that's an amorphous name. It's a trade name. We don't actually know truly what composes Southwest Group.
Wow.
But for purposes of the traditional people behind it, it's Steve Siegel, Wesley Larson, Mike Brown, and then there are a few other partners, Marion Weber. There's a guy who's based in California, Neven something. So the idea is they want foot traffic. They want residential people. They want tenants on the ground to populate their buildings, and that foot traffic, that they call it walkable city, that generates retail money, small businesses, and so that the residences are right there where the people at. And in order to do this, they want an anchor. So for Quincy Square, the anchor was the Roxy Theater, the B-Flats Apartments. And then later on, they got funding for the entire block, that block and a half. That is the business model of Wesley Larson and Steve Siegel. In Port Orchard, they were working on this idea of a community center on the waterfront, and that was going to be their anchor. So surrounding the anchor of this community center would be residences, the multifamily housing. Again, they want tall buildings, density, so-called density, in urban centers, and the way to do that, at first at least, is to have an anchor. So when you see these guys talking about developing Harrison Heights, Larson immediately talks about building a community center, and he talks about a pool and an aquatic center. He name drops Planning Commissioner Tara Selkirk because she's an ex-Olympic swimmer. Mm-hmm. She grew up swimming at the Bremerton Y, right? Mm-hmm. She's part of the advisory council for the Y here. So he's evoking the anchor. You start off with an anchor in a place where there's room to build around the anchor. So he makes money off of the buildings, right? His market rate multifamily buildings. But they start off with the anchor to make it attractive for what he calls funky and hip millennials. The idea was you want a young, professional, affluent population to come in a walkable city and live in the high rises, where they will have something to do. Mm-hmm.
But what is there to do on Denise's corner here?
Well, I believe that's where they're going to have their community center. They're going to create something to make it happening, right? If you think Quincy Square, what you're seeing is they want to make, Larson calls it, at one time he was calling it cultural resurgence, an creative arts district, right? They talk it up like it's going to be a real happening place for youngsters, for people who are affluent, the whole FIFA thing, right? They even try to transport the idea of Juneteenth to Quincy Square by making it a retail mecca. So the idea is to draw people in, hopefully younger people who have more spendable income.
I kind of felt like pimping black people, but that's a whole
really
different kind of conversation.
Yeah, it was kind of dark for me too. So that's their basic business model. So they never just say, we want to build the biggest, tallest buildings and get out of Dodge. They don't say that. They talk about community. They talk about integrity. They talk about we really need this here. We really need there. So they are not dumb, and they are not heartless. That is never my point. The point is, if you're going to have developers infiltrated into government, there has to be a check on it. They should not be doing their thing and getting rich, and often getting rich from public monies, and completely abandon the worker and the ordinary citizen and the homeless, the low income. So what we're seeing is an abandonment of that demographic.
So can you answer a question for the parents? And this question is for both you and Kimmy. And I'm a parent of a 14-year-old. So then what is the plan, if what you're saying is true, for all of us parents that have elementary, junior high, and high school students who aren't going to be able to afford these properties, because clearly it doesn't sound like they're building for us, our children. So where are our children supposed to live?
Somewhere else.
Mason County?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we supposed to go? Where are they supposed to go?
Not along the water. I feel like Bremerton's one of the last towns in this water area that hasn't been completely gentrified yet. Like we're kind of one of the last stands, and we have a chance to see what's happened all around us with all the other cities. You can ask the people that used to live there where they are now. They're not there.
I remember when I had some of my friends would call West Bremerton the hood. It's like, no, it's not the hood anymore, right? And there's parts, right?
Yeah.
But you see the strollers and folks riding their bicycles. Like
There is a saving grace, I'm hoping. Washington has some, I'm telling you, if you're a legal beagle, if you're a fanboy for law, when I got here, which was a boyhood dream, Washington has some, gotta stop that F word. Washington has some fantastic laws, premier laws, both environmental and this idea of accountability and transparency. Really great laws. The Public Record Act here, the F word,
No,
it's fantastic. It is